Welcome to the Author Showcase Series presented by the South Florida Writers Association, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide literary arts and support writers. Today's guest is Arlene Sacks. Arlene Sacks, in her doctoral studies, focused on education and behavioral psychology. She has served as director of graduate programs at St. Thomas University and Barry University. Dr. Sacks is the author of the books Moving Forward, The Widow's Journey, and The Alchemy of Love and Marriage. Arlene, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So let's start with the beginning. When did you first realize you were a writer?
I can tell you it happens sort of right after birth, I'm sure, because whether you begin with Dear Diary as a little girl and continue on to journal, I knew right away because my diary each day took pages. And that continued into high school where I was on the newspaper and had great opportunities that way. Actually, when I was in high school on the newspaper, I won the Overseas Press Club Award. And that was a really big deal as a high school person. And it served as a real good impetus to keep me going. So it started, I guess, with Dear Diary and continued through today.
And you had in your bio, you grew up in New York. What brought you to Miami?
I was married very young, and we went to school for about a decade. And we had to go where there was opportunity. And at that time, opportunity for both my husband and myself was here in South Florida. It was growing with families. There was a lot of diversity. There were a lot of similarities, although on a much smaller level, to New York City.
And has South Florida influenced you as a writer?
Oh, absolutely. I love Miami. I enjoy a big city. I'm a city girl versus a suburban girl. And I actually refer to that in this book, The Alchemy of Love and Marriage. So yes, it's proven wonderful. And because it has such a large Hispanic population, although diverse in every respect, it gave me the opportunity to take my high school Spanish and really improve upon it. So I see Miami as a great place for every possible opportunity. And to be clear, it does serve the best cafe in the world. And that has a big impact on my life.
Great. So you've written two books now. Which one came first? It was
It's an interesting question because moving forward, The Widow's Journey came first because everything I write, really, I care about. So because I went through becoming a widow and 13 other women were brought to me to speak with them. The book wasn't going in that direction, but it went. So I wrote about that. And then the second book, which is really about the good, the bad, and the ugly, or the not ugly in the end of marriage. And so I'm very passionate about that. Also, I'm a believer in relationships, partnerships, marriages, etc. So that book, which went from when I was 20 to when till my 60s, really probably should have come before The Widow's Journey, but it didn't. Widow's Journey first, this one second.
And what was your writing process for the two books?
I have a pretty definite writing process, and it's interesting because I write nonfiction. A number of people come up to me who are either writing or have written, and my writing process is based on what I care about. I have a concept. And once I have a concept, it doesn't go away. So I take that concept and I just start researching. And then I'm very fond of and enamored with quotes by people who are, whether they're in the 1700s or 2025. My books include quotes, and people really resonate with that. So first I have a concept, then I do research, then I spend about 3 months on quotes. And I also find metaphors are very important in my writing. So even my cover deals with metaphors to relationships. And then I write blurbs. And blurbs come to you at 3 a.m. or they come to you during the day. But I have pages and pages of just blurbs. Could be 3 sentences. They don't match, they don't go in any order, but I blurb for months and months. And then I put together an outline, and then I start writing. And my writing consists of yellow pad, pages, and pen.
And how long did it take from the idea of the books to it getting published? Can you walk us through that process?
Yeah, I am very, when I say good, it doesn't mean my books are better. That's up to the reader. But I'm very, very consumed with writing. What I am not good at is marketing in any way. And I know some of the people, especially at South Florida Writers Association, are very big on or have the skills. So I write for about 2.5 years. And
Wow.
then I have, separate from an editor, I have a business editor. And that person helps me go from what I put together and an editor has reviewed to Amazon.
Okay. So yeah, 2.5 years of pretty much writing. And the newest book came out pretty recently, right?
It was done and finished in December and went on basically in January.
Okay, great. Are you working on anything now? Are you writing anything now that's out in the world?
Yes. Yes, because it's out in the world. And, I'm very fortunate. I get invited to speak. I'm very fortunate by libraries, by bookstores. Um, I'm just lucky that way. People meet me, they like what I'm thinking about. And, selling is another, conversation. But yes, because once my brain gets something in its head, I can't stop. I can't turn it off. So yes, I am writing. But my first 2 books are nonfiction. This book is going to be a fiction.
Oh wow. Do you want to talk a little bit about the book, or you not want to jinx yourself? Or
Yeah, no, I'm not going to talk about it because I'm still well, I've gone from the concept stage to maybe, which takes several months, to the quoting stage, which takes me another 3 months, and the blurbing stage, which takes about 6 months. So I'm just finishing the quoting stage.
okay, good. Well, good luck with that. With the 2 books that are out that people can get, do you want to? The titles are pretty self-explanatory, but do you want to choose one of the books to talk about and what people might not know from just the title about these books?
Yeah, it's a very interesting experience putting the book out because, believe it or not, and I begin on my website. I begin. There are a number of videos. I have someone who videos me at most of my presentations, and in the beginning, I always start with, when I go to a bookstore or library, I like to look at the cover. And I'm very careful about the cover, that the cover sort of matches that which I I I write about. So on my cover for the Alchemy of Love and Marriage, there is a big white heart. And the white heart has cracks in it. And the cracks are very small, but they're filled with gold, which obviously is the concept of kintsugi. And apparently, when I was writing about kintsugi, I really didn't know anything about it. But apparently Shakira put about it in her songs, and Taylor Swift
Okay.
wrote it. So it's like a hot topic, which I didn't know was a hot topic. But and I parallel that to marriage because in kintsugi, and it's from the 15th century Japanese, if you drop a plate or a cup or a bowl and it breaks and it shatters, you can either throw it out because you no longer want to keep it, or you can fill the cracks. We fill them with super glue. And what kintsugi does, the Japanese, took liquid gold and they embedded it in the whatever they called the resin, what we use super glue for, or whatever Home Depot was selling at the time. But they put gold into that resin. And when the bowl was repaired, which took months or years, it was actually more beautiful than the original bowl because people like gold. So I parallel that as a metaphor to a relationship. You crack, you break, you can end it, you can super glue it and still see the cracks, or you can work really hard and sometimes it works. And that
So,
becomes more beautiful.
so is this a book you think people should read in the beginning of marriage, when their marriage is going well, or when their marriage is in the rocky spot?
Well, it's an interesting question. I have not been asked that. I really feel that because I divide the book, I use a lot of fairy tales as, like Hansel and Gretel walking into the forest in the beginning, and they're holding hands and they drop the pebbles and everything is great. So the first part of marriage is great. So a lot of young people or couples or partners go in and everything is great. I mean, there are some cracks, there are issues, but everything. But then when you get into the forest and you can't get back, you're sort of stuck in the middle. And that's the middle of a marriage. So there are people who are having a struggle, and it's how we put it back together, because you're going to, in the middle of a relationship, you're going to have stresses. Either you're going to have children, or you're going to have a mortgage, or you're going to have you live in suburbia when you really belonged on the block. There's a lot of things. And if your gold works, what you embed, then the last part of your marriage is absolutely great. So that's why I can't answer that, because I'm surprised that people in the beginning like this because they know and are prepared. And there are people, many people who say, well, you helped me figure out what to do. Or if I had known this, we still would be divorced, or the relationship, but I would have handled it, because we handle everything through conversations. And then at the end, they see how much fun you can have when you fixed it.
Okay, great,
So I don't
great.
know the answer, but it's a great question.
And is it mostly based on experiences from your marriage, or is it observation?
Absolutely. No, it's
Yeah.
all my marriage from day one to the end, because my husband passed away. But basically, it's strictly how two New York City kids, who got engaged. And actually, I write the first 2 pages, which I wrote at the end of the book. I tell the night we got engaged and went to a restaurant, and it parallels our marriage. Everything was light and beautiful. And we went to Central Park, and there was a gentleman with a horse-drawn carriage. We didn't realize he was as drunk as could be. So he was smashing, and we're holding on for dear life, which parallels the tough time in marriage. And then we got off and decided to remember it as a great story, not as a horrible experience. So I hope that answers your question.
Definitely, definitely. And your other book, obviously you wrote it a tough time in your life. What was your goal? What was your goal with this book?
That's a question I begin with normally. My goal in moving forward the widow's journey was strictly to help other widows move forward. I have been spoken to by several men who said it applies to them too, but it was written for widows. And it was a wonderful book to write, because I wrote about my journey, which was all I was going to do. And then as time went on, someone who knew I was writing this book would say, my cousin or my friend is a widow, and they brought me this diverse group of women that I didn't plan on. So I had people who were from 32 to 82. They were people who lived in this country, East Coast, West Coast, Middle America. Some were from Paris, Portugal, India, and they just were brought to me, all different cultures. So there are people who can find someone who had their journey in it. So
Wow.
it was really a mission. The book was just to help other widows move forward.
Oh, fantastic. And this book, both books are available. We'll have it at the bottom of the video, but they're available Amazon. Where can people
Yes.
get your books?
Pardon me?
Where else can people get your books?
They're in Amazon, they're at Barnes and Noble, they're at some independent bookstores, they're in audiobook, they're in everything. We've got hardcovers, soft covers.
Oh, great.
Like I said, I have a business editor who's much better than I am at all this.
Fantastic. And is there anything else I haven't asked you about you want to discuss as long as we have the cameras going?
Well, I think because this is really your knowing about me and my knowing about you is from the South Florida Writers Association, which I have to give them a shout out because it's a wonderful group and it's valuable because these folks represent different genres. In other words, I've been writing nonfiction, now I'm writing fiction, but people speak about, there are poets, there are people who write about science fiction, and they're a very respectful group. They're kind, they're helpful. And what happens is other writers come up to you and ask you, and you can help them and they
Mm,
can help you. So I find it a very important group for anyone writing.
fantastic. Well, Arlene, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Again, thank you for inviting me. It's really a privilege.